Hello to you, War, News, Spirituality. This time we're hosting from our studios here in Israel, in Tel Aviv, one of the spiritual leaders and teachers from Brahma Kumaris. Brahma Kumaris, one of the largest spiritual universities in the world, led by women. All the way from New York, Dr. Kala Lyengar from a peace village a few hours north into New York. Hello to you, Dr. Lyengar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brother Nathaniel. This is lovely that we could spend time together over the air.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and the kind words. What happened on October 7th, the war in Israel, and also the war that is happening for so many months, Russia and Ukraine, and in Ethiopia. When you heard about the news, how did you react?
I think if I remember that moment, I still have to take a deep breath in and out. Because no matter how advanced or, mature you may be spiritually and have understanding of why things are happening the way they're happening, but I think the heart really feels the pain of people who are literally going through that. And so naturally, yes, my instant reaction was one of absolute compassion, mercy. What can I do? Perhaps not so much of why is this happening, but really, what can I do? This was my thought, really.
The first second is mercy, it's compassion. Would you like, in order also to save your heart, to create detachment from what is happening?
Yes, but I think that came a little later, to be realistic, in terms of actually what happened. I did not think of detachment at that time, but I did think of, what can I do? That kind of compassionate response. And it was until a little bit later when I started to feel the pain, so to speak, the hurt. Then I started to understand or remember the fact that, yes, I need to be compassionate, but I also need to be distancing myself, detached myself, so that my compassion doesn't cause me pain, right? Sometimes the compassion and the mercy are mixed with so much of pain, for the self, that the compassion that cannot really do the work, or perhaps at least it cannot be sustained. I know, for example, even in my background, in my profession as a physician, there were moments when I would feel very compassionate and very out there, almost feeling the pain of the patient. But I think I learned over a period of time that, yes, that is very good. But at the same time, I also need to be in a state of detachment so that I can preserve those feelings over a long period of time. And plus, I can also use my judgment and my intellect to make the right kind of move, what would really help the patient. So I think this was a little bit of a similar situation where I felt that I needed to also distance myself while extending my feelings of love, understanding, compassion to the souls, to the people that were in that state of war.
War News and Spirituality here, a special episode at ContentoNowTV. And thank you all for joining us here from around the world. This episode based here from our studios in Tel Aviv, all the way to the Peace Village in the upper side of New York, joining us, Dr. Lyengar. Lyengar, where exactly is this peace village? How can we put it in the Waze application to reach there? Mankind is looking for a peace village right now.
Yes, it's a beautiful piece of property, residential property where people can come and spend a few days. Of course, it's very, very beautifully surrounded by natural beauty also, in the mountainside, almost like hidden away into the valleys. And not only that, but now that we have been operating as a spiritual place, as a spiritual retreat center over the last 25 years, added to that natural beauty is also the spiritual beauty that is contained in the walls of Peace Village, because we spend a lot of time there talking about spiritual things, qualities of the soul that are spiritual. We talk about building our capacity, building our, spiritual maturity, especially to understand and deal with times like we are dealing with now. And it's actually an open to public space. And we've been operating public retreats over the last 25 years, as I said.
Maybe some of the retreats could be held helping people right now in Israel, in the border. We're going to be sharing with you a few short testimonials of what happened during the war here and afterwards, so people can deeply understand and have the tools that you're recommending.
Clock strikes upon the hour and the sun begins to fade. Still enough time to figure out how to chase my blues away. I've done alright up till now. It's the light of day that shows me how. And when the night falls, ooh, I wanna dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me.
צריך להחזיר את עומר
כמה שיותר מהר. I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me.
כפרה עליו ברעים.
What would you tell Omer if he could listen to you?
I'm not sure if I would tell anything that would, make a difference, but I would definitely see myself extending my hand, my subtle hand, so to speak, not my physical hand. But I would like to, first of all, picture in my own mind that I am with you as your brother, as your sister, brother soul, sister soul. I can feel the pain. I can feel the injustice. But at the same time, I know that things will be better. I know that the one above us, the one who is holding us all in that love, is not just silently watching, but is really waiting to hold us, to embrace us in his love. And so let us just at least acknowledge that that one still loves us and is still out there waiting to help us, to hold us in his love. But for that, of course, we need to be in that spiritual awareness. Things will be better.
You're saying that you know things are going to be better, and
Yes.
I can feel that, Dr. Lyengar, I can feel the compassion, but does these kinds of awful events that are happening still during the times that we're creating this interview, doesn't it make a challenge of belief?
Yes, of course, it is challenging. My faith can get all shaken, shattered. But this is where I feel something deeply spiritual, or somebody who is deeply believing and founded and rooted in these spiritual values and principles is needed to kind of pull us out of that hopelessness. And I give a lot of credit to the spiritual life or a lifestyle or the belief system that I have been fortunate enough to belong to. And the belief is really that as bad as human beings can be, as terrible as our suffering can be, that this is not our destiny, ultimate destiny. And this is not our origin either. This is not where we started our human story either. That somewhere we need to go back, or not only we need to go back, but we will go back to our origins of health, peace, camaraderie, brotherhood, friendship. We just have to almost close our eyes and believe it. You know, sometimes when you have to dive into the deep waters and you're just new at the game, you're just learning it. What do? You just do it with that faith, isn't it? You close your eyes and jump. And this is almost like that this is also a leap of faith that we have to have as spiritual people in the goodness of humanity, ultimate and original goodness of humanity, knowing that all of these are in between scenes, but they will pass. Goodness will prevail.
Dr. Kala Lyengar, we're seeing and getting so much testimonials that are heartbreaking from what is happening. I would like to share with you, with your permission, another one reflects also New York.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shelcha.
The Holy Land and the holy days that are looking for some kind of light against the sense of rage against the Jewish people, against Israelis around the world. Are you feeling that also in New York?
I don't feel that. I don't feel that rage against anyone. But I do know that there is reason for it. There has been a past history that people are holding on to, but it may not be the real history. It may not be the real story. It's based on, of course, past events. But again, it's also based on a lot of decisions, actions, interactions, reactions that are deeply rooted in what we are calling now as ignorance. The ignorance of the human mind and the human intellect. And when we act out of ignorance, what emerges is negative feelings, hatred, pain, violence. And until and unless we are ready to shed off that veil of ignorance and open ourselves to the light of knowledge, light of true compassion, light of true love, especially, of course, with the help of one God, I think it's going to be a back and forth story of hurt, rage, revenge, and deep, deep pain. that even we feel that we have to retort, we have to react. And of course, it's very natural. I'm not saying that, people are doing it in an unnatural way, but somewhere deep within, there is also needs to be an understanding that anytime we react with the same kind of vengeance or same kind of energy as the original action was done, it actually multiplies the impact of that original energy, which basically in this case is anger, negativity. So what can I tell you? For people of deep faith, I think the call is really to not to turn the reaction against this way, but to really go upwards.
Do you really think that anti-Semitism and this feeling of rage that you personally don't feel, but yet in the streets of New York, of Washington, you know what? Let's listen to one testimonials to touch spirituality into the ground roots of the hearts of the people.
What is it like to be a Jew at NYU? Being a Jew at NYU is walking to class and passing torn and defaced posters of innocent hostages with the words occupier and murderer written across their faces. It is going to Both's library to study and being interrupted by unauthorized protests where students and faculty call for a globalized intifada revolution, an incitement to violence against Jews everywhere, and a call for the annihilation of the Jewish state and my friends and family who live there. Being a Jew at NYU is being surrounded by students and faculty who support the murder and kidnapping of Jews because, after all, as they say, resistance is justified when people are occupied. It is being surrounded by social justice warriors and self-proclaimed feminists whose calls for justice end abruptly when the rape victims are Jews. Since October 7th, the unmistakable anti-Semitism that I've experienced on campus is reminiscent of the Jew hatred I've heard about from my grandparents, Holocaust survivors, who experienced firsthand the deafening silence of their neighbors in Poland and Germany when the Nazis first rose to power. As anti-Semitic rhetoric and actions became more and more acceptable, their communities' shops were looted, their synagogues defaced, and finally, their families were taken away and perished in concentration camps. Today, in 2023, at NYU, I hear calls to gas the Jews, and I am told that Hitler was right. I am a proud Jew, and I am a proud Zionist. I am the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. We are not going anywhere. Anti-Semitism and the support for terror should have no home at NYU or any other college campus. We made the promise of never again, and never again is now.
I think that response is totally justifiable from a young person who was not directly involved in anything to do with what they're being blamed for. And I think the only thing I would say is to hold on to that feeling of self-respect. I don't think we can, any of us for that matter, whether Jew or not Jew, I don't think we can let ourselves down in our own vision just because someone else is looking at me in a particular way. So I need to really pull up my own strength and my own conviction of who I am as an individual. And that is what eventually will give me the strength to go forward with whatever I need to do in terms of protecting people or in terms of, asserting myself in a particular way, or asserting the group or the community in a particular way. So I think what I really got from that is I saw a lot of self-respect in how she was putting forward. The only thing that needs to come off of it is any kind of negative emotion, anger, hatred, anything. I think we're all entitled to stand up for our own selves, who we are, where we belong. and that's perfectly okay. But regardless of what has happened in the past and who has done what to me in the past or to us in the past, I think we don't need to bring that up. We just need to stand up for our own self in our own rights. And I call that self-respect. And I feel that that truly comes from a deeply turning inwards and recognizing that spiritual self, that positive self, that good self that I am, each one of us is. So I feel in times like this is where spirituality can really reinforce the strength and respect of that self-identity as a child of God.
You know, we heard also the leaders of the top universities in the United States. They were in Washington, and they couldn't condemn the acts of and the calls of violence against Israel and Jewish people. Let's see a part. So maybe the anger, which is part of human behavior, it's something that people cannot avoid when they want to tell the story that has a long tail to the past. So the injuries of the past are something that, how would you recommend people to overcome them? She is a daughter of a Holocaust survivor. This is part of what represents the Israeli and the Jewish identity.
Yes. I truly agree with that. But somewhere, I think if we need to make a shift outside there in the energies that are to be out there, somewhere we need to also make a shift inside in terms of how I hold myself, what is my true identity, and by the same token, how do I hold others? And this is where I think this beautiful identity of I, the soul, the spiritual being, without a body, without a color, without a religion, without a title or a name as such. I think we need to go back to that self-identity more and more to reinforce this self-respect in a very pure way, without the anger, in other words. Not easy. I'm not saying this is something that is overnight, anybody can do. But I think for the ultimate result to be positive, to be good, to be without the hurt and the hate, somewhere anybody and everybody, whoever can, and to whatever extent they can, I think I would say, let's turn inwards and reinforce that self-identity of the self that goes beyond all physical dimensions, and feel those original feelings of who I am and stand up in that pure self-respect. And the anger, I think, will automatically dissipate. I don't have to do anything special about the anger. I think it's only because I don't have enough of the vision of who I am and what my qualities are and what my strengths are and what my tools are. That's why the anger comes, I think. But it's a process.
Share with me this process that you are using personally while you, Dr. Lyengar, are angry.
The first thing is that, I know there are many times where I have justified my anger. And there are many times where I have resorted to anger because there's nowhere else to go. I didn't know what else to do. That was the only emotion that I could give way to. But little by little, I learned that it's not getting me to a better place than I was before. Yes, I'm trying to resolve something, But in trying to resolve something, I'm also creating something else that's even worse than what I was experiencing before. In terms of it could have been a relationship that I was trying to even out. But in so doing, I was making it worse. And so I call that as ignorance, just not knowing where to turn, how to deal with it. And luckily for us, I would say us, meaning all of us, humanity-wise, luckily for us, we are now being shown the way to deal with things in a more authentic way, in a more real way, in a more sustainably positive way, and yet an effective way. And that is by turning inwards to our true weapons of knowledge, understanding each other, loving, not because of who you are, not who I am, but loving because we're all somewhere connected spiritually. And of course, our strengths are really the strengths of inner powers. For example, one of the powers I'm thinking of is that, what I can literally contribute towards to people who are in suffering situations is the power of tolerance. So many of those victims, they cannot help themselves with anything at all. But each one of us does have something called a power of tolerance that the soul holds within. It's almost like when we are going through a sickness or when we are going through a surgery, for example. Nobody can help us. We are in pain. What do we need at that time is the power to go through it with the power of tolerance. And is that something that I can offer from a distance? And I feel, yes, we can do that for each other. We can, through our thoughts, through our, our thoughts are almost like arrows, right? Just like you hit each other with arrows, you can also empower each other with arrows of thoughts. But that has to be spiritual thoughts or spiritually based thoughts. So if I can look at souls out there who are in pain as souls that are also capable of gathering that strength and that power and can tolerate, I can actually transmit that power. This is another way of sharing my compassion, I feel. So yes, to answer your question, these may seem like very far distant and, out of reach and unreasonable ways to deal with stuff. But I think in the long run, and perhaps even in the short run, this is one thing that will definitely be effective. That is our spiritual outlook, our spiritual vibrations, our spiritual connection with each other. So, yes, there is a lot of justification for being angry, being violent, being whatever. But I just know that it's not getting us to a better place. And that's the bottom line.
Let's see together an example of someone who survived the Hamas-ISIS kidnapped.
Name Ella, age 8. They told her that Israel doesn't want her back and didn't give her privacy in the shower and toilet.
Name Daphna, age 14. They threw stones at her.
Name Yuli, age 3. She was separated from her mother and her twin sister.
Name Tal, Gal, and Agam, age 9, 11, and 17. They found out their father was murdered over the radio while they were held in captivity.
Name Itai, age 18. He was operated on without anesthesia.
Name Maya, age 21. Her foot was shot and then reconnected in the wrong way.
Name Yagil and Or, age 12 and 16. They burned their legs with motorcycle exhaust pipes so that they could be identified if they ran away. Name Sahar, age 25. He was murdered by Hamas terrorists in captivity. There are 137 more hostages in Gaza who are being held in inhumane conditions. Save them.
Can they be saved?
Yes, I believe the authorities and the organizations that are established to try to save them, try to prevent this, they're all at work. I personally feel that the real saving, so to speak, is really a saving of the spirit, saving of the spirit that does, things that bring harm to the self again and again. And I believe that this is a real time of challenge where we can rise above the immediate hurt and the stories, and we can really look at the story of the spirit of humanity and save the spirit of humanity.
As a physician, this is your profession, Dr. Lyengar, from the Peace Village in the upper side of New York in the United States. And you're seeing the way they were treated by physicians, by doctors during captivity. Is there any explanation for this kind of human behavior, even of professionals?
It's very inhuman, I know that. No justification that they're doing anything right. But this is exactly the point, that it has come to that point where the human spirit has been totally almost not only wounded, but, erased any sign of compassion or understanding or goodness. And so I feel this is where God comes in to the picture.
Was it a time in your life, Dr. Lyengar, that you talked with your God, with the God, and told him, hey, there's a huge challenge here, I'm not feeling you, please, something, I need any kind of help, because otherwise something in the initial deal is being breaked off?
Yes, I definitely
When?
had a lot to say about, my connection or disconnection with God. But when I did understand how really we can take help from God, things began to change.
Dr. Lyengar, please share with me the moment that it was challenged. Don't skip it, please. What happened? Take me, if you are so kind, to be a fly on the wall, to hear this kind of internal conversation that you had. What caused it? What happened?
The scenes that I was dealing with were not so dramatic as you're seeing on the screen now and as they're actually happening, but they were bad enough. For example, even in my regular practice, I was dealing mostly with children at that time, sick children, parents that were very worried and very, distraught with the way that, the children were sick. And of course, there would be treatment. I would take care of them and they would get better. But then I would also see that whatever made the children sick, or whatever the medication, for example, was, necessary to get them better, or whatever lifestyle changes were necessary to get them better, would talk to the parents. But the parents are not willing to give in. They want quick fixes, right? Give me the medicine to fix my child. What will get him better? And once the child got better, it was the same old pattern, same old habit, same old kind of foods that they were giving him. So this may not be a very accurate comparison, but I would still use it because this is human mentality. Human mentality is, come on, help me, do something to fix it real fast. Don't tell me to do anything over a length of time. So it's the whole thing of, how do we look at any situation? We just want quick fixes or instant gratification or whatever, but we're not willing to look at our behavior, look at our habits, look at our mental attitudes, and see what is it that we can do differently that brings back a different kind of energy to ourselves, that we ourselves can keep healthy, that we ourselves can be stronger to deal with situations, whatever the harm that we're talking about. But I think it's a basic human tendency or mentality that I think we need to look at, in terms of going forward. The whole thing about treating versus preventing, for example, so that's a nice concept. Also, it's so many people are wait till the last minute to get sick and then treat whatever has happened. But what about prevention, right? What about eating the right food? What about doing the right kind of things in life? If you take it one step further, we are now talking about the thoughts. And we're not just talking about thoughts that affect the body and the individual health, but we're talking about thoughts that affect each other. We're talking about thoughts that affect the society. We are talking about thoughts that affect human behavior, for example. So yes, they may not have instant impact on the people out there, but somebody has to think about them, The people who are helping them on the field are doing it. They're doing their best. The people who are trying to change the war zone and the rules and all of that, they're doing that, and that's fine too. But what is it that we as the citizens of the world can do?
Dr. Kalaim, if you could remind us or share with us your most profound moment from your personal life that maybe took you into the spiritual journey. What was the most meaningful moment in your life?
The most meaningful moment for me in my life was to understand that I am an individual being, right? And I have the full freedom to be who I am. And I don't need to be influenced by someone. I don't need to be dictated by someone, whether it is consciously, whether it is willingly, but unconsciously, I had picked up behaviors that were harmful to me. I had lost my own sense of myself. I had given in to habits that were not healthy for me.
For instance?
How did I spend my day, for example? With whom did I spend? When did I get up? What time did I go to bed? What kind of pictures, movies did I watch? What kind of companionship, what kind of friendship did I keep? Did I get tempted into this person's way of life and I wanted to follow the same thing? And I said, yes, I did all of that I had lost my own sense of my own identity, and I had given into the general lifestyle that the world was offering or some person was offering. So I had to really think about that. And when I really realized that some of the mental torture that I was putting myself through was really because of not standing up for my own values. In other words, I was trying to make someone else happy, people happy, patients happy, but I was not making myself happy. I was not standing up for my own sense of what I should be doing right. For example, even patients would manipulate you, and they would say, you have to give me this prescription, or you have to treat me like that. And I would go home thinking that, I don't have to do this, but I didn't know that I could act otherwise. So I think when I began to understand the strength of the soul that I am, the individuality of the soul that I am, the individual being that I am, and what are some of the qualities that I can bring forth, what are some of the strengths that I can bring forth in my normal day-to-day life, it gave me a tremendous sense of freedom, and that freedom made me strong. That freedom made me happy. That was my turning point. That I am an individual being, and I have my own set of values. And of course, yes, it goes back to also getting the support of God in upholding those values. And this is what I began to experience in my connection or prayer time or meditation time, that I am not alone in this. I have the support, the strength, the companionship of the one up above.
Perhaps in order to share wise words that helped you to get your freedom, maybe you can share a short few minutes meditations from the Peace Village in the upper side of New York to the people here in Israel, in Gaza, people in many locations that are feeling conflicts, people that are in conflicts with themselves, with relationship, even in those times of war. We would love to.
So if I may invite everyone to take a few steps backward and go back in time and let go of the things that we have been speaking about even. Just come back to the one thought about myself. Not just the self as I see myself in the mirror, but myself in terms of my inner world. Knowing that my inner world projects out and creates the outer world. So me, a being of light and life, life that is eternal, timeless. I'm a being of awareness, someone who can think, feel, decide, judge, act. And within myself, that little being of light is all the potential to make all of this happen, with the ultimate result of experiencing peace and love. I have the freedom to stand in my own right, in peace. Connected to the Creator. Feeling the love of that one Creator. Feeling the power and with this energy of love and power, I look at the world outside, the outer world, almost as if shining that inner light, lighting up that world in a different way than the physical light. And regardless of the scenes that are in front, the people in front, what shines through my eyes is the light of God, the light of good, comfort, deep, deep comfort for the soul. And knowing that I can, no matter where I am, I can add a little bit of compassion, comfort to anyone out there, anyone, anywhere. Om Shanti and peace.
Om Shanti and peace, and thank you for the kind meditation that is coming from your deep heart toward the hearts of people that are listening to you, and maybe one person that we believe out of many that could grab this kind of energy, especially in these days.
Well, it was quite the journey for both of us. I had to, first of all, luckily for me, Bella is, unlike all the other small dogs that I personally know, she is rather quiet unless when she's playing her mad. So they didn't notice her. It was difficult because, all the journey to get there with her, it was, an extra 4 kilos of this small cute puppy. And I also, we gave her like our leftovers so she'll eat. And she like tried to like walk around the place where we were kept, and we had to make sure she doesn't start exploring too much. But overall, she was a huge help to me. She kept me busy. She was moral support, even though she didn't want to be.
From what my daughter said, she was worried that something would happen to the dog if she left her behind. So what she did was she put her under her pajamas jacket when they got into the vehicle and they were driven out of the kibbutz. And then they took them to tunnels, and they went through the tunnels into Gaza, and she had the dog with her the whole time. And then when they came out of the tunnel, they had to climb up a ladder. That's when the Hamas people noticed that this was not a doll, it was a living, breathing dog. And a bit of an argument ensued, and it was decided to let her keep the dog instead of leave it behind.
Good dog.
One example of compassion.
Goodness, right? Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kala Lyengar from the peaceful Peace Village in the Upper Side of New York in the United States for joining us here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this, Nathaniel. Really appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you also to Sharona Stillersman, the head of Brahma Kumaris Israel, that is helping to produce and to arrange and to connect in between the dots and the studios here. And thank you so much for being with us on this episode of War, News and Spirituality at ContentoNow TV.